Hi, thanks for tuning in to this third video in my series on fixed-dose solfège. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the sources that we'll be using and also what is necessary to know before learning solfège. And I'll start with these prerequisites. There are certain aspects of music theory that this series does not teach and kind of assumes that you know already. You don't need to know a whole lot of music theory, but an understanding of several key areas will be important. If you're already somewhat advanced in music theory or have taken a rudiments course or something like that, you'll probably be in pretty good shape. I'll just go through these areas kind of quickly. So before we get started, you're definitely going to need to understand the concept of a time signature. If these look foreign to you, then definitely go ahead and learn those before watching the rest of this series. Also, this series kind of assumes that you understand the basics of rhythm reading. So if these rhythms would be difficult for you to read, then I definitely recommend that you clear that up for yourself before getting started here. Now, you don't need to know all the different clefs. If you're not familiar with alto or tenor, we'll get to that for sure, but I would recommend that you're at least familiar with treble bass. If you, for example, cannot find the note C on either of these clefs, then I would definitely recommend learning that before getting started here. Also important will be the concept of key signatures. So here you see the circle of fifths. That would also be relatively good to know. Also, if you don't know what a major scale is, that's definitely going to be important for learning solfège. Or if you don't know the three different minor scales, which you see here, that's definitely something you're going to want to learn. On the top we see the natural minor scale, in the middle we see the harmonic minor, and on the bottom the melodic minor scale. Now this might not be quite as important, but knowing the different church modes would be useful probably. So if you're not familiar with those, you might as well go ahead and learn those as well. Another area you might want to research if you're not yet familiar with it is modulation, and that's basically changing of keys. So here you see some Roman numeral analysis at the bottom, and that would probably be useful too, but I would say it's not absolutely necessary. And we might touch on all of these topics, but for the most part it would be useful if you were already familiar with these concepts before getting started with solfège. I've linked a couple of good online resources in the description of this video if you want to first take a look at those before getting started. But once you're familiar with them, you should be in pretty good shape to start. Alright, onto some sources that we'll be using in learning to sight sing. And these are some of the sources that I've learned solfège with. I'm sure there are a lot of other good sources, but they're all time-tested and used at many conservatories and music departments in the United States and abroad. And one of the main sources that we'll be using is the work of Adolf Dannhauser. Adolf Dannhauser was born in 1835, died in 1896, and he was a French music theorist, composer, and teacher. And his series of books, Solfège des Solfèges, is still used at very many institutions and has proven useful in learning to sight sing tonal music for over a century. It's also lucky for us that it isn't under copyright anymore. I've provided a link in the description where you can find it. Now there are 4 books as far as I know, and there are a lot of great melodies that are pretty well thought through for students of sight singing. This is book 4 that I have here, and this is incredibly challenging. If you can read anything in here, then you will have few problems reading pretty much any of the tonal music that you might come across. Another source that we'll be using is the work of Georges Dandelot. He was also a composer and teacher and lived from 1895 to 1975, and we'll be using his Manuel Pratique. I recommend investing in a copy of this and the Dannhauser if you can find it, or take it out of your local library if you can. You'll also be able to find this online too for free, and I posted a link in the description where you can find it at scribd.com. It first came out in 1928. Actually, that's really all the book is about. It isn't really about reading rhythm or melodies. It's just about the notes and the syllables and the clefs. Here's an example of an exercise from it. Another book that will be useful for rhythm reading would be Rhythmic Training by Robert Starr. And Robert Starr, or Robert Starr, was an Austrian-American born in 1924 in Vienna, and he died in 2001. This book is actually extremely cheap. I found it for $3.76 from Barnes & Noble, so I definitely recommend investing in that. It has a lot of good rhythmic and conducting exercises, and will almost always be conducting when doing solfège. Now these 3 books will get you pretty far, but we'll be using a host of other sources as well. Once we're pretty well versed in solfège in tonal music, we'll be moving on to atonal music. A good book for this is Modus Novus. And this book is by Lars Edlund, who's from Sweden. And you might want to wait to invest in this until you've reached a degree of fluency in tonal solfège, because atonal music is significantly harder to sing. But this book is really good. You can see that I've gotten a lot of use out of mine. It's actually kind of falling apart here. Book is pretty expensive, but I was also able to locate it on scribd.com. So those are some of the books we'll be using. Thanks for tuning in. Next time we'll be talking about some useful exercises for syllables. Until then, happy sight singing.